Salesman in China, directed by Jovanni and co-written with Leanna Brodie, world premiered at the Stratford Festival in August. This original production delves into Arthur Miller's journey of bringing Death of a Salesman to China in 1983, inviting reflections on cultural exchange. And with a huge outpouring of positive feedback, we're so excited to have lead actor Adrian Pang Yusun here to discuss the production. Now, in 1983, playwright Arthur Miller made history by traveling to China to direct a production of his classic play, Death of a Salesman. This is something that I think we all read here in high school, here in Toronto, the book. Working with the Beijing People's Art Theatre, Miller and his collaborators struggled to bridge the gap between languages, cultures, and national identities for an audience that was long shut off from the West. Now, enjoying its world premiere at Stratford's Avon Theatre, Salesman in China retells this daring act of cultural cross-pollination on stage, which is really a seamless shift between Mandarin and English, and the play becomes an act of translation, inviting the audience to imagine bold new interpretations of Miller's iconic tragedy, and really all works of art, which makes it such a brilliant aligned production with the Fête Chinoise universe. So today we have Adrian Pang with us, who stars in this wonderful, wonderful production. And Adrian, we're so thrilled to have you with us.
Fête Chinoise. Thanks for having me.
Fête Chinoise is a cultural platform in Canada, and we're dedicated to presenting meaningful stories of Chinese culture in Canada in a contemporary fashion so that we can keep that baton being passed from generation to generation. And also to give a refreshing take on what culture can mean in today's society. And so we're celebrating 10 years in 2025, and we have lots of things that we want to, invite you to and to bring people to see this fantastic production. But we're so thrilled to have you. And as I introduced earlier, we have Maggie with us, who's one of our writers at Fête Chinoise, who has attended the performance, and she just is raving about Salesman in China. So we're so thrilled to be able to talk to you today. Now, before we begin the interviews, I wanted to sort of give you a chance to introduce yourself to a Canadian audience that may not know you yet, or maybe they haven't been to the play yet. Tell us about yourself and your career before we head into the questions about Salesman in China.
Oh my God. Okay. In 50 words or less, I'm Adrian Pang, known back in Singapore, which is home, as Adrian Pang, but you can call me whatever you want. And I have been an actor since 1992. I started my career in the UK. I worked as an actor there for about 10 years, and then I was summoned by the forces that be back to the homeland in Singapore in 2001 to join the TV station as a full-timer there, and I did that for my sins for about another 10 years. And in 2010, my genius wife, Tracy, decided that the best thing to do would be to start our own theater company, Pangdemonium. And so, like a dutiful husband, I said, yes, ma'am. And we started our company in 2010, and we've been running Pangdemonium for the last 14 years. And, as they say, the hustle is real. I'm still a jobbing actor for hire. And it's been a privilege for me to be able to kind of extract myself from Pangdemonium just so that I can be at the Stratford Festival to do this wonderful and amazing new play, Salesman in China. And which is where I now find myself speaking to you lovely people.
Well, first of all, what a great name for your theater company. So kudos to your wife. Hello, Tracy.
Pangdemonium by name and Pangdemonium by nature, because it's just constructive chaos the whole time.
That's a great name. That's awesome. And what a treat for the Canadian audiences, and also for anybody visiting Canada from Asia or any other country, really, to have this play happening right now, right, in Stratford. I think for many of us, Stratford is, either you are a diehard and you're there all the time, or you may not have frequented recently because it's just, life gets so busy. And I'm so happy to see this surge of Asian audience to add to the diversity in Stratford. And it's a place that I love. And a lot of my friends who are involved, they shoot behind the stage, and they attend quite frequently. So we really look forward to bringing more people out to see your play. So without further ado, I'm going to let Maggie continue on with the questions that we had prepared for you before we get to the end where we can do a little wrap up. But I'm going to let Maggie ask you all these burning questions we have.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Deb. Yeah, because I've seen the play in last Saturday and I love it because besides writing, like my professional, I work in the theater too, and I'm a newcomer to the country, and before that, like I work for like both international and local productions. I work for Lunchbox Production before that one that brought all the Broadway too. So
Amazing.
I can like Western out all the like little story behind the scene and everything. And this play is just marvelous and richness. Like I told Anne before, like the only thing that is similar to this play is Chinglish, but Chinglish only touch on the language aspect. But this play has a more deeper understanding about culture and theater as live in things. So can you tell us more about like how do you study the character? Like the character has a lot layer itself. You play around the Guocheng, and also you play around like Willy Loman, and also I can tell that there's a lot of like bit about Jovanni himself in it, or any theater people in it. Like, can you tell us?
Wow. Okay. Gosh. I think, well, first of all, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman is a play that I've always loved. You know, growing up as you know, when I was a young actor, and in fact, it is a play that I've always dreamed of doing one day. You know, the dream of playing Willy Loman. So to have the chance to tell this story, Salesman in China, which is a play about creating a Mandarin production of the play Death of a Salesman, is, you know, a couple of degrees away from that dream, but still it's as close as I've gotten to that dream in all these years. And just rereading the play Death of a Salesman in preparation for this play just reminded me what a magnificent piece of drama Miller created, you know, in 1949, that is relevant on so many ways even now, and it's just so moving and so powerful. So to then get the chance to tell this story of this event in history, which I'd never even heard about, this 1983 event when Miller went to Beijing to direct this Mandarin version of Death of a Salesman. I'd never heard of this event. I'd never heard of Ying Ruocheng, to my own shame. I was just totally ignorant of this. So this has been a very educational, informative, enlightening, and also very moving experience for me to be part of telling this story in its world premiere, and for me to have the quite terrifying privilege of portraying this man Ying Ruocheng, who I dare say in his time was such an iconic actor, but very, very few people knew him as a person and knew what he was like in private. To have this opportunity to humanize him for the public, and to see this man's inner struggles, his fears, his hopes, his dreams, the history that made him who he was in 1983 is, as I said, quite terrifying, and I do feel a tremendous responsibility to make sure that I do it respectfully and truthfully, and you know, with the guidance of obviously a fantastic script and wonderful direction from Jovanni and my amazing castmates. I think together, the whole team, I feel has created something very, very special. And it's a very fulfilling experience for me to tell this story every night. And the way that audience members have responded to it is beyond our wildest dreams. I mean, you get the most unlikely people coming up to us at the end of the play in tears and going, "Oh my God, I'm just so moved. I don't even know how to articulate to you why I'm so moved, but I'm just moved." And just to be able to touch someone like that in the audience in that way, and hopefully imbue them with some kind of positivity from the experience is one of the most fulfilling experiences I've had in my professional career. So it really is quite overwhelming for me to be part of this. And I really truly hope that I am doing justice to this man's legacy, Ying Rocheng.
You certainly does. You certainly does. Funny thing is, like, the night before I came to Stratford to see the show, I was working in the theater, and like here is we have our tech team and our management is all Canadian local, and then that performance is from a Chinese community group, and then I was exactly like your pose, like standing in between like the Chinese group saying, "I need to do it in this way," and the tech team is like, "No, you cannot," and then I was so angry and I was so like hopeless. And then the next morning I see what you play on the stage, and then it's sort of like giving me an answer of what I am doing here too. And and then it's talking up like a lot about myself, but then like I would like to dip into like the questions that being an Asian actors or theater professionals, like, is there something you can share about this play that you can bring into this play? Is that something that you have experienced before, like being an Asian actors working in UK or in other international tours too?
I mean, certainly. When I started out as an actor in the UK, the whole idea of, I guess, looking the way I look in a predominantly white industry and white community was a struggle, and there was always a sense of being treated slightly like an alien, and being treated with this kind of mystique or this enigma that was difficult to understand, and misunderstood, and there were all these preconceptions of about what and who I was and am. And I don't know if things have changed that much, to be honest, after 30 years. And so this play, I think for me, my takeaway personally is that we cannot deny that each of us comes from a different background and have different baggage and different histories. We cannot deny that. We can't pretend, we are all one world, and we hold hands and we can all get together and live together in peace and harmony. I think that is an ideal, but the reality is that we are all different, and there will be differences no matter what. But in spite of that, and in spite of those differences, it shouldn't stop us from trying to find some way to work together, to live together, to play together, to find ways to, as Ying Rocheng says in this play, to find a way to build a bridge between the differences. It doesn't mean that this bridge will be there forever. It doesn't mean that this bridge will mean that we will be able to live harmoniously. But even for just a moment in time. And this is what's so special about this production in 1983. Just for that brief moment in time, two very different cultures managed to come together and create something very, very special. And if there's hope, if there's any hope for us in humanity in this time in our world's history, where we are just in such turmoil in every way, I think this play just gives us that little spark of hope that it is absolutely possible for two different cultures and two different peoples to come together to create something special. That is my hope.
Yeah, it certainly gives hopes to people. A lot of us, like the scene about the fake wig and the fake nose.
Yeah.
And I remember so much that, like, the line you talk about, like, I don't remember exactly, but maybe you can remind me. It's like, it is how we learned about theater, because like in theater or in life, as an Asian, we always look upon the Western way to learn how to be a proper man or proper lifestyle. And then it makes us struggle too. And then the moment when I was totally in tears is the wig man come up and then say, but I worked so hard for doing that.
Yes.
And that kind of appreciation and the hope for getting recognized is important to a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that magic moment at that part of the play, without giving away any spoilers, it really kind of undercuts the whole hysteria of how difficult it was to work together, and there's just one moment of purity and honesty of one person expressing how much it means to him to try his very, very best to create this thing which he thought was the best thing to do.
The best in his world.
In his world, exactly.
Understanding of the world.
Absolutely. In his understanding, that was what he was working so hard towards. And in theater, every single person works their ass off to create their part towards the whole. And a lot of the time, efforts are unappreciated, because it really takes a whole army to go into battle every night, to put up a show. And in spite of the seemingly unsurmountable difficulties of putting together this show in 1983, everybody was so invested. They put their hearts and souls into it. And I guess for us now telling this story, Salesman in China, we're also coming from different parts of the world. I'm from Singapore. There's another actor from Singapore as well in the production. There are actors from Hong Kong, actors from Taiwan, actors from Canada, obviously. And we're all, just like in the 83 production of Death of a Salesman, we're all very, very different, with different backgrounds, all coming together and trying our very best and hoping for the very best that we can all get along and not kill each other because we're all different, and
exactly.
and create something. And if anything, I'm just so grateful beyond words that I think we've managed to do something that is very, very unique with this show, that is resonating not just with the Chinese-speaking community, but with anyone and everyone. I get these, sweet middle-aged white women coming up to me in tears and hugging me and saying, this show this story touched me so much. And there's literally like saying, I don't know how it has happened, but I'm just so moved by this story. And so, you know, I think it transcends culture, it transcends language, it transcends background, and it just touches people in a very personal way. So I just have a lot of belief and hope in this production.
Yeah, exactly. And the pride I can see from you and from everyone, and the success is you are not only doing something, a production that the Chinese like, because I always use the method of that, like we all have our own favorite of Chinese food or snack, Asian snack. But then when we give it out to and expect all our colleagues, they will say, taste it and okay. Yeah. But then this time you guys are doing something that are both accepted by both, and it is very unique and wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, actually, I really like your analogy of food, because as you're saying, you know, you're trying to share a particularly, I suppose, traditionally Chinese delicacy or something with someone from another culture. You just never know how they're going to appreciate it. But like for example, in Southeast Asia, do you know what the durian is? A durian,
Yes,
the
yes.
fruit. Okay,
Yes.
I mean, it's one of those fruits you either love it or you cannot be in the same town as someone who's just eaten it. But you know, we you know, as you know, the Chinese culture has so many exotic delicacies which, you know, are very particular to us. And if you share it with someone not of the culture, you know, very often they'll go bleh. But I think this production has been a very unique kind of fusion of East and West, which is not just palatable, but I think it's become.
They put them durian in Michelin level.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Culinary.
Yeah, it deserves a few Michelin stars. It's become not just acceptable but delicious and nutritious. It's really food for the soul. This production is food for the soul and the heart and the mind. It's special. And that's the kind of theater I want to do. That's the kind of theater I want to create as a theater maker. And that's as my company Pandemonium, that's the kind of theater I want to produce and I want to be in. I want to create. So to find myself outside of Pandemonium in another production that is exactly what I believe theater should do is just a dream. It's just a dream.
You mentioned before that like there's cast from all around the world, like and language plays a huge role in these productions. And can I ask you like how fluent are you in both language and how do you feel about, like, I assume that you mostly perform in English more than Mandarin, and how comfortable for you to first pick up Mandarin in performance?
No, yeah, you're right. Most of my performances, both on stage or on TV and film, has been in English. The Mandarin that I learned to speak was taught in school in Singapore. And though I had very good Mandarin teachers, I was not a good student. So my Mandarin was rudimentary and basic at best. Because I'd spent many years out of Singapore, there was just no reason for me to speak it. So when I got back to Singapore, eventually I did some Mandarin shows on TV, but it always drove me out of my mind because it's just so hard to learn. I swear, Mandarin is probably one of the hardest languages to learn in the world. in the history of language. And this is me as a Chinese person saying that. So when it came to taking on this role, it was a very frightening proposition to have to learn the Mandarin dialogue. And not just that, but to do my best to speak it the way it is spoken in Beijing in 1983, by this, and then spoken by this man who was fluent in both English and Mandarin. He was like a Mandarin scholar with his big booming voice and his mellifluous tonalities, and he was so precise. So it was a very, very scary, but thank goodness all of us in the cast who have to speak Mandarin had a wonderful Mandarin coach, Zhao Na, who meticulously coached us and tutored us. And I had like 2 or 3 months of tutoring with Zhao Na on Zoom before we even started rehearsals. And so by the time I got to Stratford to start rehearsals, I think I hit the ground limping or hit the ground walking slowly. And Zhao Na, bless her, she came up to me and said, "Well done. I don't have to worry about you. I think we're good." So it's strange now. I spent years resisting speaking Mandarin for all sorts of reasons. And doing this production has, well, first of all, forced me to speak Mandarin, but over the months, it has helped me to appreciate all over again the beauty of the language, the beauty of the culture. And it's just been a joy to almost rediscover my Chinese roots. Because growing up in Singapore, certainly in my generation, there was a certain looking towards the West as some kind of an aspiration, watching American TV, American films. There was that insidious kind of westernization of psychology and, where you carry yourself and all, pop culture and all that kind of thing. So by default, I started to almost resist and deny my Chineseness. So now, at the age of 50, I'm learning to embrace my culture and my language and my ethnicity all over again. In fact, I've got a whole bunch of tats here, and I am thinking that with this space here, I'm gonna go and have my Chinese surname Pang right here, right next to me. I think my dad will be very happy.
Do you know how to write it?
I'll look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's a beautiful word.
Yeah. And a very like a punch, almost
yes,
like
exactly,
the sound of it.
Exactly.
And talking about like the language, like you have to speak both language on stage. So how does it affect your acting? Because you have that 2 voices coming up, and then the placing and the timing will be so challenging.
Yes. I mean,
have you tried like slipping through, like it was supposed to be in Mandarin or English, then you speak it the other way around? Because I do that.
I know that there was one performance, I think it was in rehearsal, when I had said something like to myself, but I said something like, "Oh my God," when in actuality, I would have, in character, I would have and should have said, "Oh my God," in Mandarin. So I had to go and actually ask Zhao Na, I was like, how do I say? How do I say? Oh my God. I mean, because that word is not scripted. So, it was just something that kind of came out. I said, "Oh my God." And then I just realized, yeah, I as my character, I wouldn't say it in English. But they've created a very technical and very clinical and very precise process of every single line being subtitled. So if anybody is speaking an English line, it will be subtitled in Mandarin, and all the Mandarin lines will be subtitled in English. And every line in the script has been programmed into this clever subtitling program.
So the subtitle is not like on site, because in Hong Kong we do have something like that, but we have someone manually to do it according to what's happening on stage.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
what about you guys?
Yeah, that is exactly what's happening. But I mean, it's not like somebody's actually typing the words out.
Yeah.
So each line has already been pre-programmed. So it's up to one person's responsibility to cue every line on time and on cue. So yeah, it's a huge responsibility. Apparently that
and it's amazing for you guys not to miss, because I've done that before, and then it's so often that we've missed something and then don't know what happened. But so far the performance I saw, I didn't see you guys miss a line, which is crazy.
I'm sure. Well, you know, giving away trade secrets here, but I'm sure there have been performances where either the actor skips the line or says a slightly different word. I mean, we're all human, and it's live theater. These things happen where, you know, and it's up to the person cueing. Actually, there are two persons who are in charge of that, Yvonne and Luna, whose job, there you go, hey, Yvonne and Luna, whose job every night is a very important job to cue it accurately for the audience. And yeah, we keep them on their toes, because sometimes, you know, as a live performance, we might say the line a little bit quicker or a little bit slower, or, you know, God forbid, sometimes we jump a line. So it's up to them to really keep on their toes. And that apparently, they said there's like 18,000 cues or something like that. It's just ridiculous. And they've programmed the subtitling so that, say for example, there are two people standing on one side of the stage, the subtitles will appear on that side. If they're standing on this side of the stage, the subtitles will appear on that side, so that it's easier for the audience to read. And the audiences have said, you know, that's just a perfect way for them, and nobody's had any problems with it. I think it adds to the experience as well of appreciating the play.
And I would like to ask about the other two actors who play Arthur and his wife. Do they have a relatively easier job than you guys? Because suppose they only speak English.
Well, yes. Tom McCamus, who plays Arthur Miller, wonderful actor, wonderful man. And Sarah Orenstein, who plays Arthur's wife, Inga, also just beautiful person. And they're both just so good in their roles, and just wonderful people. They both only speak Mandarin, except for one or two words here and there. Sarah has a few more Mandarin words than Arthur does, than Tom does, because apparently Inga Morath, the real person, did speak a little bit of Mandarin. So they've given Sarah some Mandarin words to say, and I dare say they found it a interesting challenge. Tom has maybe 2 words here and 2 words there, but I think they've been kindly given the instruction that they don't have to get it very precise. So they've been very grateful about that, I think.
But the placing for them, because like for most of the time they don't know anything what's happening, and then being able to pick up where the other stop, and then they have to. It's challenging.
We've created an literally an unspoken method, so that if there's a whole piece of dialogue that's going on in Mandarin and the next line is Tom's, between Tom and me, I don't know how it evolved during rehearsal, but I've learned to give him a signal wordlessly that it's his cue, because it's all just sounds to him, right? So sometimes he will try and listen out for a particular word, and he listens out for that word, like 杯子, and he knows that, okay, that's my cue, that's my line next. Or if it's a whole bunch of Chinese dialogue, I've learned to give him a visual cue by kind of turning my head in a way, or making just a kind of thing, or just going and then he knows. So his cue is my acknowledgement of somebody else's Mandarin line. So and then he'll listen out for my cue, and he knows that's that it's his line next. So it's funny. I mean, I'm still constantly amused by that, but that's the way we've worked it out.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, language doesn't matter when you truly want to communicate or to interact with others.
Exactly. And that's, I guess, at the heart of it, that's what this play is about, is communication. How difficult it is to communicate. Even in the same language, people misunderstand each other, let alone in different languages. And yes, the ball will be dropped. There will be instances of being lost in translation. There will be certain phrases in English that you cannot find a literal translation into Mandarin, and vice versa. And there's this whole hilarious section where Arthur Miller thinks that the phrase losing face or saving face means something in his head in Mandarin. And there's that little gap, there that they're all struggling to make sense of. What does losing face mean? What does saving face mean in different cultures? It's a comical bit in the play that really did happen in real life, in rehearsals. And the audience really, really resonates with that, because in Chinese culture, save face and lose face is I guess is a very Chinese thing, which doesn't have an
exactly like the language we talk about. Like, nobody cares about how you speak English in Canada. Yeah, but then like the Asian are more criticizing and about yourself too.
Yes, exactly. So it's just very interesting that culturally there are different ways of thinking or different emotions that has words only in that language. For example, in it is not Chinese, but in Southeast Asia or in Malaysia and Singapore, there's this word garam, which the only way I can explain it in English is like when you see a really cute and adorable baby, and you feel, you just want to squeeze and cuddle that baby. That feeling. What is the word in English? I don't know, but in Singapore and in Malaysia, the word is garam. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it in English. I don't even know how to say it in Chinese. So that feeling, it exists, but there's no word for it, I think.
Yeah,
how would you say it in Chinese?
We have yokgan.
Yokgan? Maybe. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah. What is it in Mandarin? Rogan. Rogan is a different thing.
No, it's a different thing. Yeah.
I don't know. In English, I guess you could just be like, oh, I just want to squeeze his cheeks. Like it had to be like a whole phrase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and not one word. That's cool. I learned something today.
Garam. That's good to learn. Okay, and then can we talk about the audience reaction? Like, so far you've mentioned it's crazy, and can you go deeper? Because I think it's also interesting when I was sitting there, and then the timing of how they respond is so different. Like sometimes, like the obvious part is the part when after the intermission, the storyteller comes, and then you can tell that the Canadian audience are feeling kind of awkward because they don't know what's happening. But then the Chinese one are clapping and cheering about that.
Yeah.
Like, but how about when you're on stage? Do you feel the difference about the audience reaction?
Yeah, there's certainly. I mean, I try to be honest. I try not to be overly conscious of it. Even though I will concede, and I embrace the fact that the audience is very important, because they, their reactions and their responses, they give you a kind of energy. You kind of feel, I can feel an energy from every night's audience in any show, let alone this one. But as you're pointing out, very interestingly, you will get different waves of responses from the audience, and you kind of get the feeling that okay, that first reaction was from the Chinese speakers, and then 1 second later, the second wave of reaction is from the non-Chinese speaking audience, perhaps when they finish reading that line in the subtitle. So it's nice that we get two reactions to every to every line. But I think universally there is a coming together of the audience, regardless of the so-called language barrier or language differences. There's certain points of recognition from the audience that is very, very universal. There are some that perhaps are very particular, but then I think there's once again, it just speaks of the fact that there are differences, and if you hear a line or you see a certain something that means something to you, it doesn't mean that everybody will react in the same way. But that's been what's been so rewarding about this. I mean, and there have been particular nights when one of us on stage says a certain line, and it was just such a memorable moment. This one particular show, I think 2 shows ago, I said a certain line because Miller and Ying were having a bit of an argument, and I said a certain I said a certain line, and one man in the audience went, "Yeah!" like that. He's just shouting in agreement with what I just said. It was just such a moment, because and that's how it's affecting people,
Yeah.
And there was another occasion where, once again, like you said, that argument where they have about the wigs and the makeup, and there was a certain line somebody said, and one person in the audience went, they just clapped, they just applauded, because it just hits them like that, to a point where they just almost forget themselves that they are in an audience, and they have to articulate, they have to express what they're feeling. But I think I think everyone will come away with their own personal takeaway, whether it's to do with the politics of the piece, whether to do is they're just appreciating a piece of theater making, whether they appreciate the struggles that these people had to work together, or whether it's something much more profound and personal in the story, to do with family, to do with parents and children, to do with regret, to do with longing, and any kind of unresolved feelings that you might have with someone in your life. This play, I feel, I always have a little kind of mantra to myself before a show. let tonight's audience be open-minded and open-hearted. And if you come to any theater experience with an open mind and open heart, rather than sitting there going, come on, prove yourselves to me, entertain me, but to come there and just really be willing to receive, I truly feel you will get a lot out of this. And my hope is that what you get out of it is something that will stay with you in a positive way.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. Like, yeah. And yeah, how do you envision the production engaging international, like when maybe it is going on a tour?
I really, it's really too early to say. And even through the whole process of rehearsals, I mean, speaking for myself, although I love the script so much, the moment I read the script for the first time, I was in tears by the end. And I thought, oh my God, this story is mind-blowing. And I related to it on so many different levels. And I felt like, if I definitely want to audition for this, and I definitely hope to be involved in it. But even through rehearsals, no one can tell, as wonderful as a piece might be to you, it's hard to imagine what it's going to be once you share it with an audience. An audience might not care. So it's been a very humbling and gratifying experience for us all to be part of this and to experience this kind of response from our audiences thus far. And I more and more I believe that this is a story that should be told, has to be told, somehow must find a way to be shared with as many people as possible, anywhere and everywhere. It's very rare that I will personally want to make a noise about a piece of work that I'm doing. I'm usually the last one to want to post anything about it on my socials. But this one show, I want to tell everybody about it, because I really truly believe it is a story that has to be experienced by as many people as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you are keeping a journal, you should write something down. It's someday it will be your 英国城 memoir. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Before we go to close, I remember when I researched about the piece when Yang Guocheng write about he's not writing it when it is first published. It's published in English. And what do you think about his tension? Why he choose English but not Chinese to publish?
Oh, his memoirs?
Yeah.
Yes. I had the privilege of meeting Claire Concession, who penned his memoirs together with him. And Claire, wonderful woman. She and Ying were friends, and they co-wrote his memoirs. And is it actually, that's a very interesting question. Why he decided to pen it in English first, and then it was subsequently translated by Fang, who actually translated our script into Mandarin as well. I suppose he felt that his story was one that he wanted to share with, I suppose, the rest of the world.
A wide audience, maybe.
Yeah. Well, yes, and an English-speaking audience, and because he was a bit of an enigma, and like I said, even as a Chinese person, I didn't know him about him. And the only way I would have read his memoir is that it's in English. I guess the moment I knew I was going to be part of this production, I went and got hold of his memoir. And that's the only way I would have read it. And thank goodness it's in English. And it's a fascinating memoir of his whole life, right from his childhood, all his struggles that he went through as a young actor, and what he went through during the Cultural Revolution. And in particular, there's a whole chapter dedicated to this production of Death of Salesman in '83. It's just fascinating insight into this extraordinary man's life. And as you say, thank goodness it was in English. Otherwise, I would not have been able to read it. So I highly recommend this book to anyone and everyone, as well. And yeah, it's available in English and Chinese.
Great. Before we close this section, Deborah, do you have anything else you would like to ask?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say how beautiful and how touching your sharing was about, I think it just reflects the beauty of theater and the beauty of the arts, right? And being able to pull together and connect the strands for so many people around the world, whether or not they're part of a diaspora community or they're just like looking into it. And it makes it so much more meaningful for us to support this play and also to tell more people about it, because that's exactly what we're doing. You said something really funny just now that just kind of, it's so subtle, but you said, well, thank God it was in English, right? Or else you never read it. That's how I feel about so many things, right? Like there's so many things in my lifetime that I speak fluent Cantonese and I can read some of it, and I when I edit for our magazine, I have to listen to it first before I can go along. But the reason why we publish bilingually is that same reason. It's not that it's a direct translation. It's almost like there's a nuanced way to present it to the English reading audience, and there's a nuanced way to present it to a Chinese reading audience. And somewhere in there, you kind of have to communicate, like you were mentioning within the play, like you have to understand each other. You have to understand each other when we, cross languages and cross cultures, right? Sorry, that's my baby.
It's all blessed.
So you can use garam. So yeah, it's just so beautiful what you said, and I hope that many people travel to Stratford and take the time to really appreciate the work that's put in to even produce something like this, and for audiences to appreciate that language juggling act, I guess you could say, with the beauty of creating between languages. Again, breaking the stereotypes of what crossing cultures can look like, and breaking what people think time can look like, right? And so it's the energy of a 1983 trip put into a format like this, and so beautifully done at Stratford, is exactly the parallel of what we're creating here at Fête Chinoise for this amazingly nuanced and forever flowing diaspora community. Maggie and I are different plots of dots on that continuum. And anyone going to your performance, like I'm born and raised here, but my grandmother was from Hong Kong. My mentor is from Malaysia. Maggie just came from Hong Kong. Like our team is very diverse in the same sense. So it's almost like a production like this just draws us all in together and like kind of sorts out the strands into one moment.
Absolutely.
So what you said was, everything you said was just so touching, and I can't wait to come and see it myself. I can't believe I missed the opening night, but anyway. But thank you so much.
I hope you can make it. We're on for another month exactly, and I think there's only 12 more productions or something. So I hope you can come and bring your baby. I want to go around your baby.
Well, I'll have to put something else on for him, and then just have him make he knows how to clap. We say oh yeah, he can do it. So I'll cue him for the right audience. But no, thank you so much for your time, Adrian, and also Anne for coordinating, and Kayla and Maggie for putting this together. And is there anything you'd like to share, Adrian, to say directly to our audiences, like looking at the screen, to invite them to watch Salesman in China? Just one last word from you.
Oh gosh. I believe that Salesman in China will touch you in many different, profound, personal ways. And my hope is that if you come and embrace this story, it will embrace you back in the most positive and life-changing way.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again, and have a wonderful performance tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Take care.